Hello witches, and welcome back to my channel. This is Afiowin, and today I'm going to be talking about cultural appropriation or cultural misappropriation, however you want to say it. And this is another video in my series Belief Bricks, where I talk about my beliefs and opinions on different subjects as they come to me. Okay guys, so let's talk about cultural appropriation. According to Google, let's just look at Google here, or Wikipedia. Cultural appropriation, at times also phrased cultural misappropriation, is the adoption of an element or elements of one culture by members of another culture. This can be controversial when members of a dominant culture appropriate from disadvantaged minority cultures. Okay, right? Now, I want to talk about this specifically in the witchy community or the magic community, okay? So here's the thing. There's a lot of people who are labeling the use of white sage as a cleanser cultural misappropriation or cultural appropriation because it's traditionally part of Native American culture. Now, I don't believe this is cultural appropriation, and here's why. And I realize I'm white. I realize that I am one of those dominant cultures or advantaged cultures. So I understand that this is coming from someone who has that advantage. But hear me out, okay? Imitation is the highest form of flattery. So if a witch who is not Native American is using white sage as a cleanser and specifically doing it purposefully and not sarcastically, I guess, earnestly, I think is what I'm looking for. So as long as the person is doing the practice earnestly, I don't think it's cultural appropriation. I really don't. I think it's imitation, and it's the highest form of flattery. We found something, we're like, okay, look, this works, obviously, over here in this culture, and if it works for me, then it works for both people. Why is that a problem? That shouldn't be controversial. If it works for both people, then it works for both people. This is magic, guys. Now, if, let's say, me, a white person, or whatever, let's say that I go and I am using sage to cleanse, but I'm doing it like on a YouTube video, and I'm like, oh, look at me, I'm so Native American, or something like that, and I'm trying to like say that because of this practice I'm now part of that culture, then yeah, I would definitely say that's cultural appropriation. Or on the other hand, like, okay, so one of the pictures that showed up when I Googled this was like a white person wearing a Native American headdress. Okay, if you are actively trying to understand that culture and trying to immerse yourself in it as a way of better understanding, I don't believe that that's cultural appropriation. However, if you're just wearing a Native American headdress because you think it looks cool, or as like a costume or something because, oh yeah, you know what, I'm just gonna be a Native American and that's fine. Like, okay, so I get where that comes from. I get where that can be cultural appropriation. But guys, you have to look at it in how people use it and how people are going about their practices. If someone uses white sage, that's not automatically cultural appropriation. If someone uses white sage because it's worked for them, that's not cultural appropriation, guys. Like, I don't understand what the big hoorah is about this. Imitation is the highest form of flattery. If you are imitating another culture because it works, and if you're doing it in earnest, then I really don't think it's cultural appropriation. However, if you're doing it as a way to make fun of something, or if you're doing it in sarcasm, if you're doing it just to look cool, yes, it's cultural appropriation. You've got to take a look at the intention behind the action. And this is, I mean, guys, intention is the very essence of magic. So we should be paying attention to that. If your intention is wrong, then sure, call it cultural appropriation. But if your intention is earnest and good, and you're like trying to do something, and you're doing it the way that you know how best, it's not cultural appropriation. Okay. I hope that I have explained that well enough. I feel like I kind of went on a rant there. So if you have another viewpoint that you are coming at this from, I highly suggest you tell me down in the comments, because maybe I'm missing something. If you just want to argue with me for the sake of arguing with me, I'm not really going to respond to that. But if you have a really good point, then of course I want to talk to you about that, because I don't see, like, I can see how cultural appropriation can be a thing. But when people lump everybody together in one big group, yeah, no. You have to look at the intention behind the action. All right, so guys, that was my belief bricks for today. If you like what you saw, or maybe if you didn't, I don't know. If you want to see more, then please like and subscribe, and see you next time.